Welcome back, everyone, to A Basic Conversation. I'm Brad Rieger. I have the privilege of being a host of this conversation, and sitting across from me is theologian and longtime priest, Father Jim Bacik. How about we do this again, Father Bacik?
Again is right. We've done a lot of these. I think I count about 24 of them or so.
This is the 24th. They haven't cut us off yet.
I mean, but let's do more.
Let's do more.
You know, people actually listen to some of these and tell me that they like them. So they say, you're okay, but that interviewer is great. That's what I usually hear.
I'll try to live up to that, okay? So today our topic is conversion as a way of life. So my initial reaction when you brought this topic forward was that conversion was something like radical and quick.
Yeah.
So coach me up on that.
Yeah, you're all on it for the word conversion. For most people, especially for our evangelical friends, it usually is a sort of very identifiable, one-time, decisive turning ourselves over to Christ. And people will say that. I have a lot of my good friends, evangelicals, who have had striking experiences, and they happened quickly, and they remember them. They know what day they happened. They remember where they were and how it's transformed their lives. So that's the common language in our culture about conversion. And for a Catholic audience, you have to figure out how to make conversion mean something to them. And what I'd say is that all conversions have a process involved. In other words, that person who on July 3rd turned their life over to Jesus had a history before that came to prepare for that. It might have been stuff he learned in school or something he heard in church or something his mother told him. There's something that went on, a friend that was converted. And there's a process afterwards. So the key change that I want to use in talking about conversion in this conversation is conversion as a process. As something we go through that has a beginning and high points and an ongoing future, a process. So it's a process of getting ourselves somehow making spiritual progress. Here's an image. I actually borrowed this one from Michael Novak, neoconservative. He wrote a book called The Ascent of the Mountain and the Flight of the Dove. To describe this, ascending a mountain is common. Thomas Merton did that. In Christian circles, traditionally, going up a mountain has been one way of describing what spiritual journey is all about, of how we go up the mountain. So one way of going up the mountain is sort of plodding, step by step. And when you go higher on the mountain, your perspective changes. So you're going up the mountain and you look back, and now you see things you didn't see before. So you're going up the mountain. The world looks different from where you were before. So the world generally looks different when you're 52 and have retired after a great retire in the world of education or something. Then you look back on it and you say, wow, look at what happened. I hardly realized. So one way a process of conversion expands our horizon. We see more, something we didn't see before, and now seems rather obvious. So we're going up the mountain. Sometimes you do that step by step. Sometimes it's the flight of the dove. Sometimes it's, wow, look at this. I see my wife in a different way. We did a marriage encounter, and I love her more than ever. She's more mysterious to me than she was for the first 10 years of marriage. Wow, the flight of the dove. My horizons have expanded. I've learned, and I'm now a better husband to this woman who's newly mysterious to me. I get that language of the guy who told me, I thought I could read my wife like a book until we did a marriage encounter. I found out she was much deeper than I ever knew. That's a beautiful moment. Yeah. Ascent of the mountain and flight of the dove. Now, you get up to a new horizon. within that horizon, you can make progress again. You can see things that were sort of there, vaguely perceived, but now they're sharper. I now see my newly married daughter. I always loved her, I always respected her, but since she's a mother now, produced grandchildren, I see her differently. No, nothing big has changed. It's just a facet of her that becomes more obvious to me. If you ask me, yeah, she'll be a great mother. I'm watching her be a great mother, and I see something different. So conversion as a process. Ascend the mountain, sometimes make quick progress, always thanks to God. God's gift of moving up the mountain is always the divine blessing to us. And so I'm in the process of conversion.
And we should probably talk about a theologian, Bernard Lonergan.
Lonergan, I know who you mean, yeah.
Bernard Lonergan and his approach to conversion.
Yeah. That's where I got all this, frankly. Borrowed as always. Yeah, Lonergan is a Canadian Jesuit, great theologian, exact temporary of my teacher, Karl Rahner, same age and same career. And Lonergan spent a lot of his time on method in theology. Method. He wrote books on the method of theology. Wrote a book called Insight. And not so much on content. So Rahner, I was talking to Karl Rahner one time about Lonergan. I heard Lonergan speak, but I never met him personally. And of course, I knew Rahner well, and was with him a lot. And Lonergan used to say, Rahner talks a lot about mystery. I have a few clear things to say. And I asked Rahner about that. Rahner says, don't you think he's a little big on method? So they went out for lunch and dinner and so on, hardly ever talked seriously. They were in Rome together. I happen to know they talked seriously once in Chicago. A friend of mine was with them. But anyway, Lonergan, big on method. And he said that there was sort of invariant method of how we learn. He said, you want to grow and develop, you got to, be attentive. You got to pay attention to what's going on. You have to see what your colleague at work is all about. Be attentive. Be insightful. You got to have eureka moment. Lonergan, a eureka moment is that in Archimedes in the baths discovered the placement of water theory. He runs out of the baths yelling, Eureka. I used to encourage my students today, if you have a moment when you see something you didn't see, just yell it out, Eureka, and we'll know you had your own moment of insight. That's the second rule, be insightful. Third, be reasonable. Not every bright idea turns out to be true. Not every great insight we had, wow, by examination, we got to be reasonable. We find out that wasn't so much on target as I thought. Be reasonable. Be responsible. Now that you see it and you've legitimated it and it's reasonable, now act on it. Be responsible. And finally, he puts in as a Christian, final big transcendental thing we're supposed to do is be loving. So you got that. You got to be attentive to what's going on. You got to try to understand what's going on. You got to check it out. You got to be reasonable. Got to be responsible. And as a Christian, you want to be loving. That's how we make progress in life.
And you've built on that framework of Lonergan, and because he broke it down into subcategories.
Yes, he did.
The affective conversion, the emotional, the intellectual conversion, the moral conversion, the religious conversion, and Christian conversion. So do we want to enter into that?
Yes, I like that. That's a good frame. And it's he said that there's different dimensions to our lives, and we can see this. There's a physical dimension. You know, we're physical creatures. Our bodiliness is so important. We have responsibility to take care of ourselves and diet and so on. we're emotional people. We can get angry when things aren't going right. We can be despondent. We can be depressed. We can be joyful and happy. So we're and we're intellectual creatures. We have a drive to understand. We have the ability to learn more. And we are moral people. We're called upon to act not out of expediency, but as Christians to act out of the law of love. And we're religious people, meaning we understand there's a mystery dimension of life, that life is not just one-dimensional. It's not just about how much money I make, or how successful I've been in my career, or how many grandchildren I've got. There's also a mystery dimension to it. So all these rules he's got are based on how we're going to improve in those various dimensions, by being attentive, by being insightful, reasonable, responsible, and loving. So what you could do, Brad, is direct our attention to various dimensions. Do you want to do that?
Yeah.
How about affective conversion?
Let's go for it, yes.
I like that one.
So affective, another word for that is the emotional aspect of our lives, right?
Yes, emotional, yeah.
So describe what an emotional conversion or an affective conversion.
Well, we could take examples. One way would be to say that I don't recognize my emotions. I'm angry and I don't know it. And sometimes I'm frustrated, and that's different than when I'm angry. So what we would do, if we're going to grow affectively or grow emotionally, we have to name our emotions. We have to recognize them, name them, and try to mobilize them to live a better life. So it's this example I'm using is I have anger, and I better take an anger management course, So now I'm angry a lot. That's why when I get home from work, I'm so angry at how I was treated at work that I tend to take it out on my kids. I can't do that. So now I'm recognizing that, and now when I get home, I'm going to pray on the way home that I don't take it out on my kids, that I leave it at work. And then even deeper, I'm going to go back and find out, well, why am I angry at work? Is it because I feel demeaned? Is it because I make less money than somebody else? Is it because the boss is a SOB and I can't deal with them? How I'm naming it and picking it apart, trying to understand it, so now I can mobilize an emotion. So now I can, when I go to work, I say, I'm not going to let that colleague of mine get to me. I don't care what he says, I'm just not going to give in to that anger. So that would be an example of an emotional conversion.
What about an intellectual conversion?
Yeah. I guess the problem for some people is that I know enough. Let's do it in terms of our faith. So somebody says, I had catechism in grade school, or I went to a Catholic high school, and I know stuff about my faith. And so intellectual conversion wait a second, you need to grow more in your faith. You don't, a grade school, a high school understanding of faith isn't going to make it in the modern world. There's too much complexity. There's too much controversy. There's too much pluralism. You have to have an adult understanding of your faith. That might mean you read a book, or you go to a lecture, or you listen to a podcast by a theologian, so you're all the time learning more about what the faith means. And then when you learn so much, you figure out there's so much more I don't know. Mm-hmm. And that's a process of intellectual conversion. And, it's humbling in a way. The more I learn, the more I realize I don't know. That's a mature intellectual outlook. So intellectually converted people have an impetus to keep learning. They have to follow. We have to follow our drive to understand. That's innate in us. And the faith tells us that. Be ready to give a reason for the faith you have. Scripture. Give a reason for the faith that you have. Intellectual conversion.
How about moral?
Is that enough on that?
That is
you got
solid.
the point?
That's solid, yes. What about moral conversion?
Moral conversion, yeah. There's a couple aspects of that I would like to bring up. The moral conversion means that we move beyond selfishness to be more loving. So that instead of always, what's in it for me? What can I get out of it? How I'm now going to say, well, how can I help my friend? It's not in this friendship. I enjoy the friendship, but I got to think more about how I can help her grow in this relationship. It's not just me. It's not just what I can get out of it. And friendships are that way. Friendships gives us so many opportunities to attend to the other person's needs. Sometimes I want her to listen to me. I need comfort and care, and I need someone who will sound me out. Other times, she needs me, and I learned to recognize that. And now I'm not going to press my own viewpoint. I'm not going to press my own needs. I'm going to bracket my needs. Not that I don't have needs, not that I don't want her to understand me, but I'm going to set it aside on purpose so I can attend to her because she needs it right now. So there's a give and take that would go on. So let me try a second way of moral conversion. That is to move beyond what I'd say acting out of expediency to acting out of moral conviction, out of what Christ calls us to do. So expediency would say that, well, on my taxes, I could easily cheat a little bit, There's a good chance that I won't get caught on this, and I have more money then, and so on. And maybe the more money I got, the more likely I am to try to find some way like that, So that's to act out of expediency. To act out of moral principle is, I want to pay my fair share of taxes. I benefit from living in this wonderful country. I'm blessed in so many ways. I should pay my share of taxes, and therefore I'm going to act out of that principle and not out of expediency. I got a third one. I'm big on moral.
You're on a roll.
I'm on a roll.
Conversion.
And that is today, it's so much clearer that morality has to do with dealing with systemic evil. It's becoming more and more clear as systems are unjust. Personal sin gets embedded in societal structures. I suppose our clearest one, let's take sexism as an example, of looking at the culture where women are making 80% of what men make. Well, why is that? Why should that be? In the Catholic Church, we've limited the role of women very often. Well, why should that be? So that I'm now seeing that it's not just not good enough to be right, nice to my female friends. It's something's messed up here. Something's wrong with this culture. That's what we used to send our students to Haiti or other troubled places to deal with what was, with the poverty. Help out with dealing with people to rebuild their houses in Haiti or whatever. And when they would come back, we would have what we called theological reflection and ask, one of the questions is, well, why are they poor? Why are people in Haiti have to be poor? That takes us back to examining structural evil, systemic injustice, racism, sexism, poverty, and so on. So that's my take on moral
That's a
conversion.
great take. There's two other dimensions, but how about we merge them? Religious conversion and Christian conversion.
Okay. I guess we could have been including Christ all the way along the line. In some ways I did, you know. So religious conversion, I would say, is to recognize that we don't live in a one-dimensional world. A secular analysis of the world is not the only way to look at the world. A faith or religious perspective says there's a mystery dimension to life. There's more than meets the eye. You know, that just the way secular society operates and the way people analyze things is often not the whole story. So the religious conversion says, let's get the bigger picture. The bigger picture is God is in charge of the world. And God, the bigger picture is that God is omnipotent, all-powerful, beyond all of our images, beyond all of our efforts to control God. If we think we know who God is, we're wrong. St. Augustine said that. You think you know who God is, now we know you're off track. No, so there's a bigger dimension, a mystery dimension of life that's beyond our control, but is also, we're able to get glimpses of it. We get glimpses of the fact. So you visit a friend and you're in the hospital who's sick, and in the course of the conversation, you come up with the right words, you know, and he needs whatever. You say, you know, I'm with you in this whole struggle. Wow, it was exactly the right words, and your friend sounded simple, but your friend, thank you for coming to visit me. Thank you for that. Just exactly what I needed. You're going to walk with me. Great. I appreciate it. That's the Spirit at work. You know, that's God at work. So in the Christian circles, we talk about religious conversion as a Trinitarian thing. So we would say to be converted religiously is to recognize that God is our loving Father, who always is ready to forgive us no matter what, who never gets tired of forgiving us, as Pope Francis says. God is with us. He's our support. He never abandons. Trinitarian, Christ. Christ is the wisdom of the Father. Christ is God's forgiveness present to us. He is the Word of God, the Word made flesh. He is the supreme Lord, the best we've ever produced. He's the glorious one, the wisdom of the Father. You know, and so to be converted religiously is I try to commit myself to Christ. I got to say, He's my guide. He's the one I try to follow. In my prayer, I try to listen to Him. I try to deepen my commitment to Christ's dedication so I actually live it out in my everyday life, in my business life, in my family life, in my civic life. I'm trying to And thirdly, Trinitarian is I try to be responsive to the Spirit that lives within me. In that area of theology, we call it pneumatology, PN. Pneumatology is to recognize the importance of the Spirit in our lives. The Holy Spirit is at work. So I would say religious conversion is Trinitarian. God is our loving Father, Christ is our mediator and model, and the Holy Spirit is our support and our guide.
You know, you took the dimensions we just talked about, and your latest book is called Conversion as a Way of Life, same topic as our...
That's the topic we're talking about.
Yes.
Did you read that book?
I did read it, and what I found was the meditations for each of the dimensions we just talked about were incredibly... it spurred meditation and reflection, and it's very practical, very pragmatic, and you have anywhere from 25 to 35 in each of those dimensions, and you end each meditation with a question.
Yeah.
And it's those
questions.
Did
you like that question?
Yes. The questions are...
Good. I'm glad.
Yes. So was this book, what was the catalyst for this book? Now in this time in your life and this time in your career?
Yeah.
Because you've written tons of books.
Yeah, I've written a lot of books.
And
a lot of lectures, articles
and
so on.
Yeah.
And I try to write every day, and I try to write about stuff that might help people. And so I try to be practical. I very often use concrete examples, usually people that I know or people who've inspired me or people I've counseled and so on. So I always try to get in concrete examples that would help other people to do the same thing. So that, that's part of my ongoing ministry, I guess. I'm glad you read the book. That's 3 people I know who have read it now.
Well, I can tell you
my
that,
sister read it.
Well, Pat has a good, or is it Barb?
My sister Barb. In
okay.
fact, both of them read it, yeah.
So I tell people that you can judge how I view a book by how much I highlight
I'm looking at your book.
Yes.
You got a lot of underlining.
I got a lot highlighted, and so that's a compliment to the author. So.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. It is helpful to have encouragement, frankly. As I say, I try to write every day, and I got to gear myself up to do it sometimes. And when I hear from people that actually read it or it helped them, I say, well, maybe I'll keep writing for a while.
Well, if your role as a priest, one of the things is obviously through your writing and speaking is to spur personal, spiritual growth and personal development. Well,
this book. I always think that concrete examples, instead of yelling at people, why didn't you do this? Look at how Sam really figured out how to relate to his teenage daughter by listening more to her. And somebody's reading that and says, oh, I could listen to my daughter more.
So people react well to, hey, why didn't you do this, dummy? People don't respond well to that.
No. That's part of my own approach to it, is find positive motivation for people.
Yeah. Well, this book is the other part is you can pick it up and start reading any part of the book because the meditations are there. And you can pick it up and go. You don't have to read it front to back. So this will be by the nightstand for a while.
Oh, I'm glad. Good. Thanks, Brad.
So thank you for just not only this book, but just this conversation, framing how we can look at life, this idea of...
It's all about conversion. Conversion is a process, right? A process that's involved in the various dimensions of our lives. You can talk about a physical conversion, an intellectual conversion, moral. You can talk about religious conversion, intellectual conversion. So it's a way of thinking about ascending the mountain and sometimes thanking God for the flight of the dove.
All right. Thank you, Fr Bacik.
Yeah.